Narendra Modi has been sworn in as the Prime Minister of India for a third consecutive term, but this is the first time he has been sworn into the role as the head of a coalition government. In addition to Mr. Modi, a total of 71 ministers, including 30 cabinet ministers, 36 ministers of state, and 5 ministers of state with independent charge were also sworn in. So far, though, not a single Muslim minister has been sworn in. But Mr. Modi had announced during his election campaign the goals for his third term, the principle being that of making India the world's third largest economy by 2029. For achieving that, his list includes economic and bureaucratic reforms, attracting foreign investment and global supply chains to India, increasing the share of manufacturing in the economy, among others. Basically, the overarching goal is to make India a developed economy by the year 2047. Foreign policy was not an issue in these elections, but as analysts have highlighted, some indication of the NDA's thinking on foreign policy issues was available from its manifesto. India's leadership and presence in global forums, including the success of the G20 chaired by India, figure in the manifesto. The neighbourhood first policy was reiterated. No mention was made specifically of the US, but collaboration with countries in the Indo-Pacific was mentioned, with growth and security for all as a goal. China too was not mentioned, but accelerating the development of infrastructure on the India-China border was, and support for Israel on the issue of terrorism, India's aspiration for permanent membership of the UN Security Council figured in the manifesto. Meanwhile, substantial gains of India's soft powers such as International Yoga Day and Ayurveda also found mention in the NDA manifesto. But what will add heft to India's foreign policy? Well, to further discuss what India's foreign policy priorities would be under Modi 3.0, we have with us former diplomat Ashok Sajjanhar. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on NDTV. Okay. Now, while Chinese and Pakistani leaders were not invited, other top South Asian leaders attended the oath ceremony. Sir, is it fair to say that the neighbourhood continues to be priority one and is a greater push for the Indo-Pacific cooperation on the radar going ahead in this term?
Yeah, thank you very much, Parmeshwar. I agree with you. I think neighbourhood is going to be priority number one, as it was in 2014. You would recall all the SAARC member states, their leaders were invited, as also the Prime Minister of Mauritius. In 2019, the BIMSTEC leaders were invited, as well as the Prime Minister of Mauritius, and at that time, the President of Kyrgyzstan, who was the chair of the Central Asian countries. And this time also, we've seen basically the focus is on neighborhood as well as Indian Ocean, because this has become Indian Ocean and Indo-Pacific more broadly has become an area of greater contestation, because China has been spreading its tentacles and has been expanding its footprint in this region. So yes, this would be an important element. China would continue to be the most formidable challenge as far as India is concerned. You are right. Pakistan and China were not invited for 2019, although Pakistan was invited in 2014. But Pakistan also relations have been really frozen from the time of 2019 after the Pulwama attack and the Balakot strikes took place in February of 2019. So there also our policy has been very clear. Terror and talks don't go together. And if you are going to launch any terror attack against us, then we are not going to sit quiet and we are going to take measures against it, as we did in surgical strike. The other aspect, I think, is, again, as you said very correctly, and I quite agree with you, is going to be the focus on economic collaboration and cooperation. India is participating in getting into FTAs with, whether it is the United Kingdom or it is the European Union or the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council, and there are some others of the same nature. So I think focus is going to be on that. We have seen the product-linked incentive scheme that has been there, enhancement of manufacturing. So I think all these are going to be very important elements, because the target is Viksit Bharat 2047. And right, I think the government is going to work towards that.
We are aware that FTAs are important for India to raise exports. But we're also now seeing that countries are more interested in trade agreements in the areas of digital economy and e-commerce. In that sense, which direction do you see India headed in? Well, we hear that India will continue with new FTAs and would like to conclude with the ones with the UK, for example, and Bangladesh, among others.
Yeah, I think you make a very valid point. I think these are areas in which India has strengths. You know, digital and fintech areas are, and e-commerce are areas where India has proven its strengths. And over the last, even during the challenging times of COVID, we were able to take a large number of policy decisions, reforms that we were able to introduce in the country. And they have yielded us with very good results, you know, whether it is opening of more than 500 million bank accounts, or payments through mobiles, or payment of subsidies directly into the accounts of the beneficiaries. And I think the world over, India has been able to establish its leadership in these particular areas.
Yes.
So here, I think definitely we are going to move forward. Also, Parmeshwar, India has shown in recent years, you know, when we concluded the SEPA, the economic partnership agreement with CETA, it is called, economic and trade agreement with Australia. And that had been hanging fire for a long time. Then we took barely a few months to conclude our agreement with the United Arab Emirates. We also entered into the I2U2, India, Israel, UAE,
Yes.
United States. We are also members of IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, meetings of which are taking place. So the point I'm making is that India has been very proactive, and that the world has seen that India is serious about this. Even in other areas, for instance, you know, signing the 10-year contract, maintenance and development contract of the Chabahar project with Iran. So I think India's seriousness has been made clear to the world, and I'm sure that India is going to show results in that. You know, we are going to see, of course, the Prime Minister travels next week to Italy for the G7.
Busy diplomatic schedule indeed, sir. But, sir, as we wrap, as Mr. Modi kickstarts a third term, what would you say are some of India's weaknesses that can be converted into strengths going ahead?
Yeah, so I think first is in terms of our relations with China. As I said, that is the most formidable challenge. I think we need to do something about it. But as they say, you can't clap with one hand. You have to have China also playing ball.
Indeed.
And we've seen over the last 4 years since Galwan, China has refused to play ball. The second is, you know, India's economy is growing 8.2% last year, and growing very successfully. So I think that is where on the economy we need to focus, so that our movement forward is very rapid, particularly in the area of exports,
Right.
because exports are a very integral element of development of growth of our economy.
As always, sir, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV.